Hello, Rubiers. This is Dr. Deb, the director of the Food Coach Academy, and I am so excited that you're joining me today because there's a lot of noise going on about food as medicine. And I want to talk to you about what the place of culinary medicine is. But right now, I just want you to look on the page where you clicked to get to this to this presentation today. You'll see if you want to sign up for my newsletter, do so there. There's a link. And we're also having a summer sale, so half off for those of you that are interested. So, food is medicine. Where is culinary medicine's place? This was actually difficult to do, even though this is my area of specialty, because we are defining it as we're going. Now, the food is medicine movement is not new, but we think it's new, but it's not. It actually started with the WIC program, the Women's and Children's, that we give money to. That was the first official food is medicine, but they didn't really call it that back then. And it also harkens back to the 1980s with the AIDS epidemic, where they created meals prepared for those that were suffering with HIV/AIDS. So it was around for a while, but kind of stayed really, really quiet. And now it is booming, 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 booming. So I want to start with just some health statistics to kind of make you sit up and pay attention, right? So a poor diet is now the number one contributor to disease. It used to be cigarette smoking, but in 2019, poor diet surpassed it. So if there was just one thing that all of us could do, and those that we're working with can do, it is to switch to a healthier diet. And you don't have to do it all at once if you've watched me before, right? If we did that, we would have a decreased risk of disease and we would be much, much healthier. So, a poor diet is the top contributor to cardiometabolic deaths, global coronary deaths. So, we're basically talking heart disease here, and new diabetes cases worldwide. And you might think, well, that's a lot, but how are we doing with our diet? Well, someone created what's called the Healthy Eating Index, and it scored from 0 to 100. 0, you couldn't get worse than how you eat your diet, and 100 is really great. And I think starting off, we would say, in the olden days, maybe 60 was a passing grade. Now it's 70. So, what is the score worldwide of our Healthy Eating Index? And it's 30 to 45, right? And I think a lot of us, most of us, all of us can say that that is a failing grade. In the United States alone, it's about 50 to 55, depending on the age of the individual cohort. So we are failing. We're failing, and we all know we're failing. And the reason it's taking center stage right now is because it's costing a lot of money. And what can we do about that? Now, I had said that food as medicine was not new, but what made it blow up in the last 3, 4 years? COVID-19. Because what happened with COVID-19 is health inequities came to the surface. And health inequities are based on food inequities as well. So, what I mean by that is when you look at the risk of diabetes and heart disease, which were the leading risk in COVID for being hospitalized and not having a positive outcome, you see that those that had diabetes and those that had heart disease were mostly Black, Asian, Native Hawaiian, right? It was not whites. And that brought to the surface how the amount of inequity in treatment and access to healthy food, to medical services. And we are really looking at that. So the food is medicine movement kind of took that as an impetus, and which I love is it kind of blended together food insecurity with food as medicine. Anything that can help get food to everybody who's deserving, and everybody's deserving of healthy food. Now, how much do we spend in the United States for what we call poor nutrition? When we look at medical services, how much those cost, as well as what's called productivity loss, which means you didn't go to work because you weren't feeling well. $1.1 trillion dollars. Oh my gosh, I don't even think anyone in the world has 1.1 trillion, or they shouldn't. So you might be thinking, wow, we spend a lot, so we must be doing really, really well when we compare ourselves to other countries. Nope. Even though we spend nearly twice as much healthcare in other high income countries, we are the bottom of the list. We are the bottom. We have the highest rate of chronic disease and the lowest life expectancy. Shame, shame, shame on us. And I believe, and other scientists believe, that food is a huge contributing factor. And that's where culinary medicine comes in. So, in order to define food as medicine now, I read several articles and I pulled out two of the ones that I thought were the best. The first one is Dr. Mazafarian, and he is the director of the Food as Medicine Center at Tufts University, my alumni. And so he basically says they that food as medicine is food-based nutrition intervention integrated with health systems to treat or prevent disease and advance health equity. So he actually calls out health equity in his definition. Now, the thing to remember most is what separates like community programs that provide and food pantries with food as medicine interventions is the connection with the health system. That's essential. Now, I highly recommend if you're interested in food as medicine that you get the Aspen Food as Medicine Research Action Plan that was just put out this year. It is thick and it is fabulous. So they say that food as medicine includes two components. It's the food that supports health, whether that's medically tailored meals or groceries or food assistance. So that's kind of like a side door they're coming in there with the food insecurity and a connection to the healthcare system. So we can say that this food as medicine movement is grounded in health equity, and you need the food and you need the healthcare system in order to go forward. Before I go into a slide that is a slide beyond any other slide, I want to talk to you about the difference between food insecurity and nutrition security. So, is somebody food insecure? And this was, if you've listened to another one of my talks, I did bring this up just once before. So, my doctoral dissertation many, many decades ago was if an elderly individual is eating cat food and dog food as a source of their calories and their protein, does that make them food insecure? Technically, it doesn't, but that's horrible. They are nutrition insecure, right? So, nutrition security means are they getting healthy, vibrant food that's going to support health? So, food insecurity is let's just get calories in. And as a nutritionist, after a hurricane or a disaster, you're looking at getting water and calories into individuals. And that's the first line of defense. But after that, the other 95% of the time, you want to make sure they have healthy food that's going to make them strong and healthy and be able to fight disease. So, this food as medicine slide takes you through, and there's a lot here. So, you have your produce prescription or vouchers. Now, again, that is a clinician either prescribing in a visit saying, I'm giving you a produce prescription, you can go pick it up here, or it's somebody going to a community health center, but they already have a diagnosis of a disease that's diet related. Find one that's not. We've got heart disease and diabetes and cancer, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease. I mean, it goes on and on and on. So that is how you are able to receive the food. Now, the food is anything fresh, frozen, canned, no salt, fat, or sugar added. The issue with this, when you're coming from a culinary medicine perspective, that you need to pay attention to is the line under the red that says they're food insecure, they have a health risk, but they're able to shop and prepare food and access food themselves. Super important. Okay. So the food choice is up to the individual in certain programs, sometimes not. I actually spoke to a farm cooperative in California. Now, Medicaid, that is paying for some of this food, is deciding in every state what counts as food as medicine. So this one farm cooperative brought 5 farmers together, and they were of Mexican descent, and most of their food insecure, underserved population were Mexican as well. Now, they would come to this food market, talk to their compatriots, and they would learn how they grew the food and all that. And it was a fun time by all. And then they would go and they would pick out what fruits and vegetables they wanted. And then Medicaid intervened and said, nope, you cannot, that's not considered food as medicine. You cannot pick up your food because then you would be deciding what you need versus a dietitian deciding for you. And right now, in order for you to receive free fruits and vegetables, you must receive a box that is tailored at home. We have a lot to learn, right? So that's some of the things that are happening there. Now, the clinician or the insurer, that's another point too. So the clinician can say this person is at risk, but so can the insurance company. I don't know how they can do that because they're not clinicians. Can say that you're eligible for the free produce. And sometimes it's paired with a registered dietitian. The registered dietitian are essential individuals as part of this food as medicine program, and they're not getting the spotlight yet. They're starting to come up. They are really the only ones who can tell you if you have a medically tailored meal, what goes in that, what that actually means, right? So dietitian is really important, especially when you get to medically tailored groceries and medically tailored meals. That dietitian is the one who is taking the chronic disease that the patient has been diagnosed with, other metrics like their weight, their cholesterol level, all of that. They're clinicians, and they are putting together a box of food or a medically tailored meal. Now, in order to get medically tailored groceries, again, you need a diet-related health risk or condition, be able to prepare your own food and access that food. Again, really important to know. And it includes both perishable and non-perishable meals. And they have to be unprepared or lightly processed food sufficient to prepare a nutritionally complete meal. So this is really great. So you can't be dumping in, like sometimes if you go to food pantries and you see like, cake that was from a holiday 3 months ago on the shelves, they can't do that here. It has to be fresh, lightly processed, or unprepared. So that gives them partial or complete nutrition. Sometimes they get recipes and nutrition education. Sometimes people that give out prescription, like if they're a pharmacy, FARM pharmacy, they'll give out recipes as well. Again, the clinician or insurer assesses the need. The dietitian or clinician pre-selects the food item. And since physicians only have an average about 4 hours of nutrition for their 4 years of medical training, they're usually the ones not doing that. And then they are also screened for food insecurity. Now we go to the medically tailored meals, and you'll see there is no little chef's hat above the red here. And that's because the patient has a severe chronic illness and they have to have a limitation in what's called the ADL, activities of daily living. They couldn't prepare the meal if they tried. They can't stand, they can't go get the food, they can't heat up the food. And so that is where they're sending you ready to eat meals and snacks from scratch with fresh ingredients and no fillers, right? And that's their complete or near complete nutrition is met. And that's usually for episodic, right? So that's either somebody who had a complication from surgery, after pregnancy, that type of thing, and to get them to the next place. And then they can either go down to medically tailored groceries or come off of it altogether. Now, long-term critical support, and it could also be long-term critical support for someone who's very ill and has minimum activities of daily living capabilities. Again, the clinician or insurer refer, the dietitian does the assessment, and then the dietitian sends it over to a medically tailored meal official company, and that company calls the patient and says, what do you have at home to prepare food? Like, do you have an oven? Do you just have a microwave? And they're doing what a patient has in their kitchen in order to reheat meals, but not necessarily cook a meal. So we go up in the amount of food and the amount that's medically tailored. And some of the programs have cooking skill building. And sometimes it's a community health worker, sometimes it's a staff member, sometimes it's someone at the farm, but they're not trained in how to teach people to cook. Um, and that's really, really important. They also provide nutrition education through the dietitian, and sometimes they'll have a lifestyle or behavioral change program. The food is medicine also adds power to your food stamps or your WIC program. So if you get, let's say, $30 a month, you might get $60 a month when you join a food is medicine program. So these are what is considered food is medicine to date. And again, each state is trying to figure out on its own how they're going to pay for it, how they're going to distribute it. And again, you're going to see, because it's America, you're going to see some local programs providing the groceries and the tailored meals. And then you're going to have large companies that have large investments coming in and doing it as well. And then it becomes not local. So if medically tailored meals for people with diet-related conditions could prevent 1.6 million hospitalizations, and that's a $13.6 billion savings. And I was thinking, that's a lot of savings, right? Especially when we pay 1.1 trillion. So huge amount of savings. But how much does the food is medicine program cost? And that's the key question, because insurers aren't going to pay for it unless they can make a profit from it. Some studies show that there's a lot of, actually a study just came out of Tufts showing per state how much you would save, how much the insurer would save if you did a food is medicine program. And if you want that reference, just let Ruby know and I'll send it to you. So to answer the question I posed in the beginning, culinary medicine's place in food is medicine is in teaching the cooking skills, right? Somebody who knows how to cook needs to teach the cooking skills, right? But in order for food is medicine to be sustainable, for the medically tailored meals, right? So you're sick, you're in bed, someone's delivering you medically tailored meals, and then I think the most they go is about 6 months, sometimes 3 months, depends. And then they stop delivering the meals. Have they taught you how to cook for yourself? No. Have they taught you how to shop? No. So they're just going to go right back, right? If it's a chronic disease, they're going to go back to where they were. That's not acceptable. Not on my watch. And for self-efficacy, culinary medicine is super important. When you teach people how to cook for themselves, they become less reliant on the medical system and on others, and they gain a sense of self-efficacy, which is what everybody wants. And then in order to have equity, diversity, and inclusion, and I've written a lot about this, you have to have an individual interacting with that individual that they trust and that they understand how much money does that person have to spend. What do they like to eat? What's their palate like, and what's their cultural heritage? Because if you don't teach them within the world they live in, it's not going to be sustainable, and they're not going to gain self-efficacy. And we're going to see more health inequities happening again and again. And that's not what we want. So when I developed the Food Coach Academy, I did all this with all of these in mind, right? So I don't know of another one that teaches people not only how to cook, but to teach others how to cook, right? That's super important. And food coaches provide one-on-one support in the kitchen. They get to translate clinical competencies into clinical recommendations into culinary competencies. Your doctor, your nutritionist said you need to eat less fat. Well, that means that we need to learn how you can cook with less fat in the kitchen. Let me show you how. And the motivational interviewing techniques that are in the Food Coach Academy were specifically designed with another motivational interviewing place in Maine, and they're specific for supporting food behavior change. And they can be local community members, because that's who people trust. They trust people they know. All right. So I went into the list of questions probably like 3 days ago. Patrick let me know there was quite a bunch of questions. And these were expected questions, right? Especially since we said we were going to talk about culinary medicine and, what foods to eat for certain conditions. And this is now I got to get on my soapbox. I'm on my soapbox. Okay. You, as a clinician practitioner, I cannot answer to you what specific foods you need for a specific condition until I assess you. I do not know what your current diet looks like, and I don't know what else is happening, right? But I am going to go into foods that are anti inflammatory, anti cancer, and build a healthy gut system. If you do not have, and you'll see in this picture, if you don't have a foundation of a whole foods way of eating that's plant forward, I didn't say you needed to eat all plants, but plant forward, there's enough plant based foods, whole grains, fruits, and vegetables in your diet. You are going to have limited to no success with adding those other foods. So it starts at the foundation. All right. So let's look at foods that are anti-cancer foods. And when I'm done with these specifics, I am going to answer your questions. So that's in like 3 slides. So you want to focus on foods that have antioxidant capability because cancer is caused by what's called damage from reactive oxygen species, ROSs, right? And you need an antioxidant to grab them and get them out of the way before they damage any genes, any DNA, right? So those foods are a vibrant color of fruits and vegetables. I'm listing specific ones here, and lean protein. And you also have to be concerned about the type of fat. So your cell has kind of like this has this lipid layer. So this is the inside and the outside of the cell. In order to get through, you go through these channels of fatty acids. Now, if that fatty acid is fluid, that cell is really, really healthy and things can attach to it that need to attach to it. But if you have like saturated fat, stiff fats, then things can't get by and connections can't be made, and this can damage the DNA. So healthful fats, lean proteins, brightly colored fruits and vegetables. The green and cruciferous vegetables you see up here in the top left, you've got your cabbage, your Brussels sprouts, your broccoli, your cauliflower. Those are really great at detoxifying. So those are really, really important. When it comes to cooking methods, you want to make sure that you're avoiding charred food because that black stuff, that's cancer causing, right? So you want to make sure you don't cook things so long on a high heat and char it like when you're grilling, because those can cause cancer. And then I put this on the bottom left because the field of alcohol has gone up, down, around the bend, and back again in terms of science, and I've been following it for many, many years. Alcohol, bottom line, is toxic to your brain and to your liver. Any amount of alcohol can increase your risk of these cancers that are here. That's all I'm saying. Whether or not you choose to have a glass of red wine for your heart disease at night, that is up to you. But because I'm talking about cancer, I'd be remiss if I didn't add that part in here. Now we're going to talk about food for gut health. And if you're not familiar with the microbiome is roughly, it contains 10 times the amount of genetic material than our own DNA. We've taken over, right? And the microbiome, these microbes are bacteria, virus, and fungi. And they're on our skin, they're almost everywhere. They're not in our blood because that's very dangerous, but they're throughout our gut and our mouth and our skin and our hair. And they are superpowers. They can be, and I'll tell you why. It's really, really incredible. So in evolution, if you believe in evolution, it takes a long time for us as humans to adjust to like a change in diet, or it'll take hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of years. But the microbiome, they can change like that. So the microbiome can actually digest fiber. They can do that in a very, very short period of time. And they can therefore react faster than we can, right? So this microbiome is made up of these microbes that I discussed. And they are the healthy ones and the not healthy ones. And you want to be in balance because life is all about balance, right? And if you have a healthy microbiome, you're going to have improved gut health, increased immunity. There's also a gut brain connection. So your mood, anxiety, depression, less inflammation, and better physical or mental health. What really supports a healthy gut are the healthful foods that I discussed in the previous slide and I'll discuss about in the other. Um, so you're talking about healthy fats like omega-3s, avocado, and olive oil, the fibers, right? So the microbiome, these little microbes, they digest the fiber or the resistant starch, and they create something really, and they create. Give me a second here. They create short chain fatty acids that help them to be able to survive and become healthier and healthier, right? And then you've got your phenols, which are colorful fruits and vegetables, and then your fermented foods. Your fermented foods are probiotics. So fermented foods actually have those microbes in them. So you're actually ingesting the microbes. People do it one of two ways, either in a pill form or in a food form. I always like to say, try the food form first to see how it goes. So when you're choosing yogurt, you want to make sure the yogurt pack says active cultures, because if that yogurt company heated the yogurt after the microbes were added, there would be no microbes left. So you want to make sure there's microbes in there. It's also in food like tempeh and miso, kombucha, natto, sauerkraut. So those are great probiotics. You're ingesting the microbes yourself. And then there are what's called prebiotics. And these provide the fiber that I was talking about before for these microbes to chew on, and then create those short chain fatty acids. And that creates a healthy lining of the gut. Now, these prebiotics are garlic, onions, leek, asparagus, Jerusalem artichokes, dandelion greens, bananas, seaweed. A little note on seaweed, right? So if you live in Japan, you have in your microbiome, you have an enzyme to digest the seaweed, but you don't if you don't live in Japan. So I don't have that. And so you can see how that enables evolution to occur in our food supply. Then we have, I just heard a thing. Can you still hear me? It went do 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 do. Okay, we're good. All right, I just had a weird noise. All right, and then it's your fruits, vegetables, legumes, and whole grains. Again, anything with fiber. Fiber, 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 people. You need to get enough fiber in order to be super, super healthy. All right, now let's get to the last slide, and it's about the anti-inflammatory foods, because I know there were several questions about an anti-inflammatory diet. So this figure on the left came from Harvard Health. They have fabulous nutrition information. So if you want to check that out, it's great. And so they listed foods that fight inflammation. Now, inflammation happens, it's a positive thing because inflammation, we have the ability to launch an inflammatory response when something that is outside us, right, comes in and then we attack it. So that's like COVID, that's like the flu, any type of virus and bacteria. We mount the white blood cells come and the immune system comes and it does it and it gets rid of it and then the inflammation goes away. But because of our diets, a lot of us have what's called chronic inflammation. And that is because you have what's called dysbiosis. And what that means is that your unhealthy microbes are overpowering your healthy ones. And so when that happens, those microbes they mount an immune response in your intestines. And that immune response eats away at your intestinal barrier. And then what happens? You have what's called leaky gut, which means that big particles that were never supposed to go through your intestine can go through your intestine. And when that happens, that's not self, right? So that is the pathogen. So it looks at this as not self, and the immune system attacks the gut. And there you have this chronic level of inflammation. So what you want to make sure that you do is limit the amount of ultra processed foods. That would be what I would say is your first step, right? So those are your sugary desserts and drinks. It's your red meat, your processed meat, and unhealthful fats. Olive oil is a very healthy one. So if you want to just choose one, I would choose olive oil. You want to make sure that you're baking, steaming, or fast stir frying, and not deep frying or grilling, so you don't mount an immune response. You also need to remove the triggering foods. So again, if you said, "What can I eat because I have an arthritis or something like that?" As a clinician, I would first find out, do you have a food sensitivity or an allergy? Because that will mount chronic inflammation again and again. And until you take away those offending foods or food groups, you're going to continue to have chronic inflammation. And you want to make sure you're eating lots of healthy fats. Well, not lots, but enough healthy fats. And you can get it from fish like salmon, mackerel, and sardines, or plant based, your flax, chia, and hemp seeds, and your walnuts. And then again, a rainbow of colors, lots of variety. For this talk, I went back because when I was in nutrition school, it was quite a while ago, and we learned about the nightshades, right? That they were very they caused inflammation, and that's your tomato, potato, eggplant. There's the data today says that that's not necessarily true. There's not sufficient evidence to actually support that anyway. But if you remember one thing from this talk, your body never lies. So if you eat something and you don't feel good, try taking that out of your diet. So let's say you had tomatoes and the next day you woke up, you're kind of stiff or whatever, and you're like, I wonder if it was tomatoes. Get them out of your diet for, I don't know, about a week, maybe 5 days, and see how you feel, and then add it back. And if you feel bad again, then you're like, oh, my body doesn't like tomatoes. You don't have to call it an allergy or a sensitivity, it's just your body doesn't like it. So on this list of foods that fight inflammation are tomatoes, your fruits, especially your berries. Those are also really good for brain health. Nuts and olive oil, leafy greens, fatty fish. And we also talked about the foods that lead to inflammation, like fried foods, soda, refined carbs, lard, although I don't know many people who eat lard anymore, and processed meats. So that's your bacon, that's even your cold cuts from, you want to buy things that don't have nitrates or nitrites in them because that can damage. So right now I am going to switch over to the questions. So just give me a minute for that. And I am going to switch on over and read your questions that you have. That I am going over to. Just give me a sec. All right, here we go. So, Chris, you were super busy, Chris. Chris, you asked amazing questions, and I'm going to try and answer all of them. But yes, you're kind of like one of those people that are like, not on my watch, which I love. You're a food warrior, Chris, right? So it has become a financial challenge to low income families. And the food as medicine movement is one way for that to change. But it's going to take a village. It really will. It's going to take a farm, right? It's going to take anywhere that you can grow fresh fruits and vegetables in your environment. There was somebody in California on the sidewalk, where sometimes you see trees. He planted vegetables and that was in LA, and he has a TED Talk if you want to look him up. And it's amazing. And people just walked by and had some of that. But it's going to take a whole systems approach. It's going to take fixing this health insecurity, inequity, and food insecurity in order to allow everybody their right to accessible, healthy food. So I hope the food as medicine movement really budges that needle and moves that down the road, because they are focusing on the food insecure in that. Okay. Kathleen, Are degree programs available for people interested in pursuing culinary medicine? Not yet. So, you can get a culinary medicine certificate if you are a dietitian, a nurse, and a clinician, nurse, dietitian. You have like a medical clinical type of degree, and you can get certified at the culinary medicine college, something like that, which was started by somebody who started one of the culinary medicine programs for degree professionals. With the Food Coats Academy, I have made sure that I've gone to the American Culinary Federation, and you can receive 510 continuing education hours to go towards a certification, a national certification when that happens. We're not there yet. We're still building. All right. Another one from Kathleen. Why haven't some doctors, nutritionists, dietitians, dentists embrace the fact that food either promotes health or promotes disease? So that's a really good question, Kathleen, and they don't do it intentionally. And this I learned really early on, what actually went to my first cancer, where I couldn't understand why my doctor didn't believe in holistic and integrative medicine, right? And it's not that he didn't believe in it, but it was a different language. Like he was speaking English and I was speaking Greek, and he didn't know how to speak Greek. And it's the same with many clinicians in our society. There is a lot happened with the food as medicine movement to increase nutrition education for clinicians. They don't know. They don't know. And that's half of it. And the other half is they are so overworked. They're not even taking care of themselves most of the time because we have not enough clinicians to support everybody that needs to see them. So they're stressed, they don't have the time, and helping people change their diet, listen to me, I've been doing this for over 30 years, takes time. It doesn't happen like that. Getting to a place where you're not eating a healthful diet didn't happen like that either. It's going to take time and support. And right now, I'm also certified in value-based medicine. We can't ask clinicians to do that. We can't ask the doctors. And I don't know about dentists because that's not, I've worked in hospitals my whole career, mostly. But the dietitians and nutritionists, yes, they are doing that. Not all, but many of them, that's what they do. They're the only ones that can do MNT, medically, well, it's a medical prescribed therapy session. I didn't get that right, but it's half right. All right. What meal would you prepare to demonstrate the power of food as medicine? Well, Chris, it would probably be I would do salmon because I love salmon and it has high in omega 3s and a ton of leafy greens and more than one color of vegetable on my plate. So I probably have 2 or 3, and then I would have a whole grain. So if you're gonna say, "What does that meal look like?" Well, it's a quinoa salad with dried cranberries and almonds with some plum vinaigrette and olive oil, and then I have steamed some kale, and then I'm gonna do a little bit of kale in the oven to make it crispy and chips, and I'm gonna put that on my salmon. I'm gonna roast beets like I did the other day. There we go. As long I do the modular approach, Chris, so you want at least 2 vegetables, you want a healthy source of protein, whether that's plant or animal-based, fish, chicken, whatever, and then you want your whole grains, and there are about 1,000,002 plus recipes and meals I could come up with that fit with food as medicine. Once you know the modular components, you're able to build it yourself based on, right, your wallet, your palate, and your cultural heritage. So, what my food as medicine meal is going to look like as an Irish white person is going to look different from someone from another culture. The SAD diet, that is the standard American diet. It's based on processed foods, which we know are high in sugar, salt, and oil. They're usually bland, soft, and easy to digest. How do you propose to shift preferences to fresh, chewy, and flavorful foods? One bite at a time. So, if I'm seeing somebody who is really following a SAD diet, I will ask them, okay, there are certain things we can work on. It's your choice. Do you want to work on your intake of grains this month, or learning how to decrease salt and make tasty food? Or do you want to work on your fats and oils intake, or your vegetables, or your fruit? And I ask them because they get to choose one thing to work on, and then I try my best to support and coach them in helping them to make that change. So it's going to be one step at a time, and it's going to take food warriors like yourself being arm to arm in the kitchen with folks, teaching them one by one. Okay. What can we do to promote more healthy food and move away? Should we be activists? Yes, Chris. Demonstrators? Nice demonstrators, Chris. Working in food banks? Absolutely. Thought leaders? Absolutely. And this is how I live my life. So I can't heal everybody in the world, but I feel, this is my belief, that my community, those I come in contact with, I've got their back and I'm going to help them. Some people are, that's enough for them to do it in their community. Some want to do it nationwide, statewide, whatever speaks to you, Chris. I think you're needed. I know you're needed. So, good luck to you. I'd love to hear what you end up doing. What can I say to a medical professional to make them think about food as a component of healthy living? Well, Chris, I'd say nothing. I would show them, right? Medical professionals' eyes wide open when you walk in and maybe I'm not saying you, but a person walks in and maybe they're 20 pounds lighter because they switched to whole foods way of eating, or they got their cholesterol down that was impossible in the medical professional's eyes because you need medicine in order to do that. And then okay, so that is, sorry. Yeah. Someone just came to pick up my dog. Sorry about that. All right. So I would live by example, and you can ask them again, do you want to learn more about this? Ooh, I have this really great book you can say to your clinician. It's called From Clinic to Kitchen, right? The culinary medicine textbook. Even give it to them. Yes, I wrote that with people from around the world, and that's a doc can totally use that. All right, Chris. TV commercials promote reading labels to identify healthy food for dogs. How do we promote healthy food for kids? Well, it starts with not allowing 100 times the amount of money to be marketed to kids during prime kid time and product placement in some of the TV shows that are constantly bombarding kids' minds with you got to try this cookie or breakfast cereal that's really a candy, right? And so go to the Rudd Center, RUDD. They've done a lot of research on marketing to kids, and there's going to be some really great ideas for you there. So it's the Rudd Center, University of Connecticut, used to be at Yale, RUDD. All right. Christine, can you suggest ways to implement the concept of culinary medicine into the food service industry? Well, that's exactly what I'm trying to do, Christine. So I'm glad you asked that question. So it depends at what level. So at the chef level, I would love for them to take the Food Coach Academy and learn how to work with healthful food, how to make meals that are lower in salt, sugar, and fat, and as importantly, how to interact with individuals to help support them in making a dietary change, because that is very specific, right? Food, when you try and take away someone's food, and trust me, I was on a committee at an elementary school and we were trying to ban cupcakes. You would have thought I was trying to take away, I don't know. We would have so many people saying that is my right, my child's right. This is a very personal, I'm going to say spiritual, emotional issue with everybody. Food isn't just about the nutrition, right? It's about our food stories, it's about our emotions, it's about all of that. It's about connecting with individuals. So you need to know how to approach somebody when you're hoping to help them eat healthier food. Also, for food service personnel that work in like elementary schools, I know there's programs I'm blanking on it right now, but I can look that up to help get healthier food into school systems. So again, one step at a time. All right, Cindy Q. I would like to know how to stock a kitchen for the healing power of food. All right. So I would, Cindy, give you the same modular approach that I've been saying since the beginning of this conversation. I would start by not throwing everything out, right? So again, honoring your wallet, your palate, and your cultural heritage. So I'd first go through your we look in the culinary medicine textbook. There's one textbook about the kitchen. It's called the Teaching Kitchens. And in there, we break up the kitchen into 4 zones. So you've got your pantry, your refrigerator, your freezer, and your countertop. And I would suggest tackling one of those zones at a time. So if you are going to tackle your pantry zone first, look to see what's expired, throw that out, see how many whole grains you might have in there, and slowly start to, as you continue to eat and get rid of maybe your white rice, you bring in some brown rice, some whole grain rice, wild rice, that type of thing, and you do it one choice at a time. And over time, especially if you have kids, right, you can't I'm going to tell you why I'm laughing. I used to work with David Katz, and he would teach kids in second, third, and fourth grade something called nutrition detectives, and that was how to read a food label. And and the kids would go home and they would go into their pantries in their refrigerator and they would start throwing things in the garbage can. Oh, he'd get some mad calls from some parents. That it was quite funny. So yes, you want to do things again slowly, unless you're the person that likes to really just go and do a complete change. All right. I thought I was almost. I also want to call your attention to I put in a link for cancer prevention food facts and another one in how to fight inflammation in this list here. Foods that help promote a good night's sleep. So again, I wouldn't specifically. I mean, you can Google what foods promote sleep, like things that have tryptophan in them, or a nice warm glass of milk, unless you are going to get up peeing all night because you're a little older and your prostate's not working well, or you're premenopausal or menopausal, and that's not going to work. So again, see, I can't answer directly, but what I can say is do not fall asleep right after you eat a heavy meal. Eat earlier in the day. This is the best advice I could give you. So make sure there's a good 3 hours. And that doesn't mean like eat at 10 and stay up till 1. That's not what I'm saying. Like if you can eat earlier in the day, in the late afternoon, early evening, that's better. What I've started to do is have my biggest meal at lunch and then do a smaller meal at dinner time if I can't do it earlier. So either you do it earlier or you have a lighter meal for dinner. Are there educational programs that teach patients how to manage a food budget so that SNAP benefits can last the whole month? I'm not familiar with any specifically, but absolutely there are benefits. There I would go to either the Gus Snip Center, so that's GUS, new word SNIP, and they're the ones that do a lot with WIC and SNAP and all of that. And if you can't find anything, email me or reach out to me, and I will try and dig something up for you. All right. It's hard to find foods that can help with prediabetes, anti-inflammatory, and acid reflux. It seems many of the recommended foods cancel each other out. I know, Christine, isn't that horrible?
Testing. Okay. People, I disappeared into the ozone. All right, so everyone can hear me now? Very good. Yes. So Christina, I was saying it's really, really hard when you get varying dietary advice for varying issues. So there are enough fruits and vegetables in the world of fruits and vegetables that you can find some that so what I think you're maybe talking about is so tomatoes can cause acid reflux and they're also anti-inflammatory. It's going to take a while for you to find what those foods are, and you might want to start with like the worst thing first. So acid reflux may be working on that, or your diabetes. You decide. So, but I wouldn't make it. Just start somewhere. Um, And I know the reason I'm saying acid reflux is because if you can get that under control, you can eat a more variety of foods and they wouldn't be as limiting. Um, so see how you do with that. Deborah W. Why not address the food-like substances that are considered food in grocery stores? I know the confusing and false advertising. Yeah, when I talk about ultra processed foods, that is exactly, Deborah, what I'm talking about. And that takes the nutrition education piece that is essential in the food as medicine movement. It's also something that food coaches learn how to do. But we absolutely, it's like we're calling things food that I don't even consider food, and that takes education. Yes, the whole that's a little high-end biochemistry there, in terms of anti-inflammatory. The solanine, the recent research hasn't, supported solanine, as being, um, inflammatory, and when it comes to pectin, I can't really comment about that. Tammy, thank you for the shout out. All right, let me see. I think I have time for like 1 or 2 more. Yeah, no, I'm not. So Tammy, you said I've been going over and over what I had done to promote my breast cancer. Tammy, that doesn't help. There's no blame. No, no, no. Trust me. Trust me, I got you. I know this, right? No. It wasn't just diet, right? Because if you really think about it, there are other messages that are coming to you too. Maybe it's your stress level or your emotional level or your relationships. I can tell you one thing for sure, and this is scientifically fact, that cancer is not caused by one thing. They call it, in Western medicine, they call it the two-hit hypothesis. So you might have a genetic predisposition, but then something happens. So for me, with my non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, um, it was exposure to when Chernobyl blew. I was drinking irradiated cow's milk. Right, that was the second trigger. So it's really great, and I'm really glad that you're looking at things that can really support your health in general. And but just don't go there, please. It's a trip you don't need to take. Sorry, people, I'm getting a little emotional. There are going to be a lot of messages you're going to learn through this, and good luck to you. All right. The Angie Wiles Center. Yes, very much. He trains evidence-based, sustainable, integrative approach. Absolutely. Actually, he was just on the Mayim Balik podcast, and I was just listening to him last night. And I also worked with him when I was at Columbia Presbyterian. He's awesome. And he is teaching clinicians how to use these integrative approaches. So Demetra, absolutely. So somebody who's been trained by Andy Weil can answer questions like, okay, like the previous question, I need something for my GERD and also my pre-diabetes, and I need it to be anti-inflammatory. An integrated practitioner would know it like that because they have more at their dispense than just the food themselves. They know how to use herbal remedies, and they know how to use other modalities like Chinese medicine and acupuncture and all of that. So 10 thumbs up for Andy Weil. If one is not a clinician, dietitian, nutritionist, how can this Food Coach Academy help us to procure any kind of job, volunteer position in the community? Can you tell us if it's possible? Absolutely, Ann, you. And that's the whole point. I created this course not for the clinical individuals necessarily. I did it because I knew there needed to be a tribe of food coaches that were in communities that people could trust. And just like health coaching started decades ago, it took 10 years, actually 12 years, because I talked to Dr. Meg Megson at Harvard, to create a nationally certified health coaching degree. But it started somewhere. And knowing that the Academy of the American Culinary Federation gives 510 continuing education hours, and that we're seeing some of these courses in cooking schools means that it is happening. And with the food is medicine, you can join that movement by being the cooking instructors. There's so much more happening now for people to be able to create a job. You could have your own, your own at-home job that you a private practice. So yes, it is possible, and that was my dream. And I continue to work and will continue to work on creating a national certification. Because if you look at the medical system, unless you have a national certification, insurers probably won't pick that up. But insurers have already been picking up food as medicine uh, charges. So it is happening. It's been happening for about 5 years now. So it's on its way. And I want to thank, excuse me, I want to thank you all for joining. May you eat well this month. Next month, I am talking about something. You'll see. I'm trying to remember. Was it grains? No. Patrick, do you remember? It is grains. Okay. We'll be talking all about grains. So eat well and be good to yourself. Thank you.